I feel like some people have a really hard time relating, parents, for instance, have a hard time relating to their sons of various ages, especially the moms, right? Because we've never been a boy. But
Sure.
so there's that. And I really just raising, well, 4 of my sons are adults, and then I think most people know I have a 10-year-old. And so it really is different. But what do you find lacking in society these days, like regarding
Mm.
boys?
What a big question.
That
Well,
question.
I want to point to something that we talked about previously that I love, particularly with your 10-year-old boy, is I think we were talking before and you were talking about playing video games with him.
Oh, I did. Yes. I played, I think, a video game. I think I probably played once with one of my older sons. It was Smash Brothers. He absolutely obliterated me and was so happy to tell everyone he knew for at least the next month, right?
Mhm.
And he still remembers that. He's like 28 right now, and we were talking about it the other day. He's like, "That was like the best day of my life,"
Mm.
because 1, I don't like video games, and I know some girls do, of course, but I just never, probably my age and whatever, I just could not get my head wrapped around them. I thought they were a waste of time, a waste of money. I couldn't stand them, and so I felt like I had to sort of show that through my actions. Like,
Mhm.
well, I'm not going to say this is like okay, or I felt like if I played with him, then I was saying it was okay that he played, but I didn't
Yes.
want him to play. I wanted him to go outside, that kind of thing. So
Mhm.
now that my 10-year-old is in front of me and he asked me to play a game, my answer is yes,
Mm.
because I had to learn. It's not about the video game, it's about time with my son.
Yes.
And
You
it's
know,
not like I do it every day, I don't, but I do it more
what
often.
has changed? Well, one thing has changed in 30 years is the type of things that interest them.
Ugh,
And so I don't know what it was like to be a mom 30 years ago, but I guess if there was a gap then, it might be a little larger. You're
yeah.
entering in virtual spaces that you just have even less context for and
Mm,
are more and more niche. So even as a person who knows quite a few different niche video games, I'll have the boys sit there and tell me about something I've never heard of. And I
uh,
live this stuff and it's still a gap. Maybe that's one thing.
yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's interesting. That's one thing that is so different now, screens in general, right? Do you wanna talk a little bit about what you find that what you hear boys saying about their screens or about their
Mm,
relationships with their friends on screens? Can you tell
mhm.
us a little bit about that?
You know, this is just such a complex issue because I'm glad you connected those immediately. Screens and my friends on screens.
Mhm.
It's not just an activity. Maybe if you were playing Pac-Man back in the day, you were alone or you were at the video game arcade with friends.
Mm.
It's a lot more blurred. The social aspect is so connected to that.
It's so hard.
Yes. Yes, and so, taking away a video game is sort of like not letting them go to the party either,
Yeah.
and so much of it is social standing within the video game is, it's the playing, but it's also the wearing of something that shows their status. I was playing last season, and you can tell that because of what I'm wearing or what my character is wearing.
What?
Smash Bros is actually really that was a kind video game to have you play because it's sort of limited. It's not, it's a single map generally if you're playing with somebody versus like walking around a world. There aren't necessarily different outfits that you're going to be putting on, although that you might change the color. It's a time condensed usually. It's like a certain number of lives or
Uh,
a certain number of minutes versus never ending, almost like a doom scroll of video games. What are kids saying? I think kids particularly know the pitfalls. I have a neighbor who is I think 10 at the time, and he said, I just can't stop scrolling.
ugh,
They're not most of the time unaware of the problems that these video games have. They don't like that they're having to throw a tantrum either. Like,
ugh,
they'd probably prefer that the conflict that arises from the tantrum doesn't happen.
right.
So it's yes, they're very aware.
That's good to know. What do they wish, like, specifically regarding screens, do you hear boys saying, "Man, I wish my mom, would understand this," or "I wish my dad would
Mm,
just do
mhm,
this." And that might be more than screens, but
mm,
I'm just
mhm,
so curious because I think a lot of parents are aware that
mhm.
they are meeting their friends online, right? Because I counsel or account well, I coach, excuse me, coach clients.
There's some overlap.
There is some overlap, that's true. And that's their number one concern is, okay, I want to take the screens away at a certain time, right? I
Mhm, mhm,
I wanna be able to do that. The parents understand and they realize, like, okay, they can only be on so much, like, it's not very healthy for their brains to be on it, whatever they're on it, like, maybe 17 hours a day or 15 hours a day or something like
mhm.
that, right? And so then, we talk about boundaries and whatnot, and they're like, "But it's almost like you were saying, like, sending their friends home too early kind of a thing. But they can play online, till 11, 12,
Mm, mhm,
1 AM,
mhm.
and it's as if, like you're saying, as if they're going to party. So parents are really conflicted of like,
Yes.
okay, where do I draw this boundary? Is my kid then going to fall out of the social standing? And
Mhm,
right? And then that's not what they're meaning to do. They're just trying to get their
mhm.
kid off screens. And so I'm just so curious what what you found. And we found some things that work as well, but I'm just so curious what you found as you're counseling the boys, what they wish their parents would do. How do they want help, even though they can't really ask? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I mean, you said my parents don't understand, and that's the number one reason that students or teens or children, maybe children don't verbalize it quite as much, but they come to me is, 90% of them say, "My parents just don't get it."
Yeah.
And they mean something more than like my life online, but I think that's part of it. And so I think parents, I have friends who pay attention to football. It is hard work for me to, like, keep up with football to any extent to be able to engage them. I almost have to do some prep before I hang out with some of my friends. I'm like, "I need to know who's in the Super Bowl, at least for, like, time with this guy."
Right.
And, I think there has to be some intentionality, at least on the content and the experience of video games and screens in general, and that's just very challenging with what's out there. Particularly with like a VR experience, like putting on that headset. If I did it, I'd probably have some like serious vertigo or something. Right. And so parents like thinking about that almost like as a part-time job of like learning what's out there so that you can connect with them. And
Mm,
your Smash Bros story is probably longer because of what you had to listen to beforehand, the actual playing the game. Like even I was playing with some friends Super Smash Bros. I watched a video to prep for a I sound like I'm 12, but a friend's birthday party. But I looked at the video and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is a video game for like video for beginners." And I didn't know 3 of the things. And I've been playing for a long time. And so I tell that story to say if that's how far I am from like the experience of a 12-year-old boy,
mm,
I think a mom of a teen boy is further just because it's less maybe natural, doesn't interest them. At least it interests me.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Right.
treat it like homework in some ways.
Oh, wow.
That could be a takeaway.
Yeah, that's a big ask, but it's good to know, right?
Yeah.
Well, because I think, like, when they say, "Oh my gosh, my mom or my dad, they just don't get me." Like you're saying, it's pretty broad. But it is
Mm,
interesting because typically I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong, but a kid is probably thinking about something specific. Do you
hmm.
think?
Very likely. Yeah. Or if you think about it like 80/20 rule. Okay, you don't need to know everything, but
Yeah,
what are the 3 things that could be like 80% of that statement?
right. Yeah. And I'm wondering, here's the hard part though, is if I had a peer that I would say, "Oh, tell me more about what I might not understand." And they'd be like, "Well, Beth, da, da," they would be able to express that. But I think with a boy or a younger kid, these um, yeah, 10 to 18, whatever.
Mhm.
Well, and older. They have, as far as I can tell, just a really hard time even knowing what they mean by that, right?
Oh, yes. Yes, Beth, I have a story.
Great.
That so I grew up playing video games, and I play some, very small, a couple hours a month, maybe. And got this video game because I heard about it that is called It Takes Two. Have you heard of it?
Oh, I have.
Okay,
Shockingly.
perfect. Yes. This is a great game potentially for, like, moms to play with their son because the entry point is fairly low. I say fairly because of the story. I got the game, started playing with my wife, and she was in tears, and I was probably in tears too within 20 minutes. And part of the reason, and maybe, this could be a metaphor in some ways, she was trying to ask how to do something, look around, and move at the same time, which is just like a basic video game skill,
Yeah, that I don't
for
have
most
either.
things. Well, you shouldn't have it because you probably didn't grow up doing this, right? And that motion is actually that thing. It's so basic. Look around and move your character at the same time. When you can't do that, it looks like gun is at the ceiling and you're like spinning, right? And so she was in tears, and it wasn't because I wasn't trying to explain it to her. I was, but then I realized I do this naturally. I
Yeah,
don't even think about this. And so maybe if you're thinking about you're trying to connect with your teen boy on a topic that you just don't understand, they might actually be telling you how to do it, but they're not going to be very good at it because they've never been in your position,
right,
right? We handed them a controller and they figured it out in 25 seconds, and they've done it for 8 years.
right. Yeah. It's a really good point.
Let's talk about some things. One is that we'll fall into the trap of saying that video games aren't the real world. Let's start
Mm,
there. That's, I think, selling it short. It
yeah,
is
I
the
agree.
real world. It's a different sort of part of the real world, but it is real. Things that happen online are real and they have consequences.
That's so fair. Yep.
However, I think things online foster some anxiety as well. If I'm having like conflict with people on screens, I think it is leading toward that anxiety and conflict outside of screens. I mean, one of the number one things that people come in, they're 16 or 17 and they haven't gotten their driver's license.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yep.
And I think that's rooted in an anxiety about what would happen in the quote real world, maybe the physical world. And then it would be a depression if I'm waking up and I'm not very motivated. Well, the real world's, I fall into it too. The physical world skills required to get to from I'm waking up and I'm able to drive a car legally on the road. That isn't gamified.
Mm,
That takes like commitment and failure and practice paired with the parents' level of anxiety sitting in the
yeah.
seat next to them for what, 50 hours? I don't know how many hours you have to accumulate right now to get your driver's license. And
Yeah.
I
You
think
don't
when
think Grand Theft Auto is a just kidding. Just kidding. It was a
yes,
joke.
Grand Theft Auto, you're exposed to the kind of the idea of real world things, but you haven't had necessarily the practice of the anxiety that comes with it. So
Yeah.
then you get in the car. I don't know. People
No,
smarter than me could probably dig into that.
no, I think it's actually such a great point. And I have several clients over the years talking about like it's such a milestone, right? Being able to
Mhm,
drive
mhm,
for a young kid and they're delaying it, right?
mhm,
They're
mhm,
anxious about it. And I so it's interesting because my adult children had video games, but they did not have social media because they're just a little bit older than that. And so
mhm,
it is different, but there's still tons of anxiety about driving a car, period. I
mhm,
think.
mhm,
But it's
mhm,
such a rite of passage. And there's a lot of kids who don't know how to push past that obstacle, right? Of of feeling that much
Mhm.
anxiety and all that,
Mhm.
right?
Oh, absolutely.